the end of trauma is coming, and the end of trauma will be an 8-week course on organic intelligence and the application of organic intelligence to one's own life. As you may find out in that course, there are resources like in this course, for instance. Let me just give you a sneak preview, but there are going to be daily or at least certainly several weekly informational videos, short, concise ideas from organic intelligence that will help you consolidate and reinforce ideas that are important from organic intelligence. And these are ideas that really are founded in the way that our physiology operates. And we have to begin by understanding how our biology works, that we are first and foremost not a psychological being, but a physical being, a biological being. And my relationship with the way that my biology works is actually a key to happiness. So I'm going to share some of those with you in our heart training and in this end of trauma course, and I'd like to invite you to consider this for your own benefit. There are going to be presented these ideas, the informational videos will come through. I will directly talk with you on weekly webinars and give you the orientation to the week's understandings and application of these tools into your personal life. So if you've got some degree of anxiety or depression or even physical ailments is something we have really good luck with, things like decreasing the discomfort of fibromyalgia or chronic fatigue and so on. But people often find that they end up taking less medication for these things because it's really founded in the way that we can support the biology to work more efficiently. And that efficiency we define in a really specific way. I have studied therapy, and I've trained in clinical psychology, and my meditation background really gives me perspective and grounding in a quality of presence and the use of attention, and then the study of the physiology and the clinical use and the way that we speak to the language of the biology and listen to the language of biology and learn that language is a key. So we'll look at this acronym called ISOMA, which the acronym stands for image, sensation, orientation, meaning, and affect, which are all of the elements of one's experience. And we will look at each one of those and take each one of those in detail to give you better ideas on how to fully cooperate with the way that your system wants to improve itself, to grow itself, to heal itself. And our goal isn't just then the end of trauma, but the end of trauma that means then the beginning of the stepping into the stream of your life's destiny. That is, why are you here on the planet? What is it you really feel like you might be here to achieve? If you've lost track of that, this Organic Intelligence End of Trauma course may be something that you want to take a look at, and I would invite you to do that. So you'll get the informational videos, the webinars, you'll get daily meditations, and these meditations, which are called the strategic use of perception, are really key. And the daily use of that, you'll have a journal in which you'll do reflections, just very brief reflections on this process, and track your growth and development. There are a lot of bonus materials as well. There'll be a bonus coaching with me. There'll be bonus videos on, say, the way that the nervous system is structured so you can understand that better in order to work better with yourself. There will be all kinds of additional, like family rooms. You'll have a set of family rooms to be able to watch. These hour-and-a-half informational videos are packed with information to help you understand organic intelligence and work better with your own system. So I hope you'll consider to join us in Organic Intelligence. Our heart trainings are international. We're working in Switzerland and Turkey and in several locations in the United States. And in March, I'll be in Ireland, and I'll then go to Switzerland. I'll be on the East Coast also in Portland, Maine, and New York City, and then from Switzerland, where our heart training is. Heart stands for Human Empowerment and Resiliency Training. We go into then Istanbul, and the Istanbul training, where we'll graduate our first cohort. So take a look at the End of Trauma. Sign up on our website. Be the first to be notified about that, and then let's see if we can end some trauma and get people moving toward a better way of living. Organic intelligence says that there is this impulse of support that arises spontaneously, and we are more and more going to let go and learn how to combat the addiction that is negativity, the addiction that is called the negativity bias, or in organic intelligence, we call it the what's wrong attention, the way that we are primed to look for, seek for, be fascinated by, drawn to what's wrong. And we're going to try to break that habit and the addiction and come over to a more conscious and enjoyable engagement, not with what's wrong, but what is, first of all, through orientation, connecting to the environment through the senses, and then cultivating a little bit at a time what is more pleasant in all of these channels: image, sensation, orientation, meaning, and affect. So in all of these channels, in the image channel, in this body sensation channel, in the way that I connect to the environment through the senses, in cognition, the meaning channel, in affect, in feeling and emotion, we're going to cultivate supports in that, not because that's the cure, but because it's the balance to the what's wrong attention. Ultimately, the goal is to support people's return to efficient biological functioning, and that's synchrony. Our motif here, and I'm sitting in front of this banner that says the end of trauma has to do with resyncing your psychology. Resync your psychology, because what suffering means is a biology that's out of sync. It's like a car that is out of harmony, that is, it's tuned, it needs a tune-up, basically. If you have a car that is really badly tuned, it just doesn't function. That's chaos. If it is beginning to function better, and you're beginning to, find the harmonic relationship among, those pistons, the spark plugs firing at the same time, and the work happening in sync, then you're beginning to move more toward prosilience, a smooth and efficient movement. And so that work is what I train people to see and to support, the emergence, natural emergence of a system that can do that, because our system not only wants to stay stable, it wants to grow. And if it can learn that it gets that stability and growth in efficiency, the growth in information processing, the growth in problem solving, right? The growth in clarity of mind, the growth in clarity of spiritual insight, all of these aspects are prosilient and are the direction of organic intelligence. So from the standpoint of these isoma levels, we're going to explore each of those week by week, so that we can then find our way into this greater support, and you can take that support then into a session with an OI practitioner and really then change your life. This has been a dream in a way, because for those of us that are clinicians and working with people, they're coming in to work with us. Clients come in, and they may be used to a therapeutic milieu. They may be used to working with therapy, which specifically begins with the question, what's wrong? But from the standpoint of our perspective, what's wrong is the focus on what's wrong itself. We are instead extremely interested in listening adeptly to these isoma levels, image, sensation, orientation, meaning, and affect, and listening for the signal that is subtle, that is big or little, that is the signal of self-organizing information that is intended for your own system. So in our practice, we reflect back the signals that are meant to be from the client's biology self-organizing. And those signals are uniquely then positively reinforcing. And we are training clinicians and others really to work in our three-phase model because we have a unique perspective on attunement and how important it is to attune to the major phases of the system. And in order to really attune to a system, we have to recognize whether it is primarily in a disorganizational phase, that is in a phase of chaos, or whether it is moving across into a more organizing phase. In phase one, in chaos, the system is disoriented and is really a subject to the basic biological principle of sameness or stability, or just the way that systems are meant to stay really stable. Like, for instance, the biology says, what's my first priority is actually stability or homeostasis, a balance, a fluid balance. But that balance has to be predicated on no major system changes. So on the one hand, it says that my system needs to stay the same, and that means that it's not going to disintegrate. On the other hand, we're going to find that there is this equal impulse for growth, development, healing, and expansion of bandwidth, expansion of the capacity for information processing, expansion for the biology's ease of handling intensity of all kinds. So in phase one, the system is subject to this law of stability that says everywhere I go, I am self-reinforcing my level of functioning. That is, it's very hard and very difficult, very challenging, I was going to say nearly impossible to, if you're falling in an elevator, jumping at the last minute does not save you. If the elevator is going down, it's just going down. And so we have the similar sense from this stage of chaos. Something else is needed. And it is really difficult because the person is like lost in a fog, and people will reach out for help, but that help then often simply reinforces the state of their limited information processing. It reinforces sameness because that's an important value. In order to really grow a system, there has to be a very specific understanding of these phases and what is really helpful in each phase. And so in the human empowerment and resiliency training, we teach everybody who comes in. It's not just therapists. It is really for everyone who is wanting to be in support of themselves and life on the planet, that we invite you to participate in this and learn these major phases. Because the shift then from phase one to phase two is where the person then begins to recognize what's actually going to be helpful and begin to limit their time in the activities and experiences and states that are simply keeping them stuck, and then really moving toward states, conditions, activities, habits, and practices that are going to be truly helpful. And these helpful tools are not going to be the ones that are normally talked about in therapy. And I know because I trained as a therapist. So this is something I want you to check out in the end of trauma course. The next move, of course, is this movement from what one can be doing in self-support. That's phase two. And that's all of the information and the theory and the practices that really build resilience. That is, we are creating the conditions that truly support growth and stability, growth and capacity, ease, comfort, and movement toward happiness, and really providing this reason for hope. And for those of you who are clinicians and already working in organic intelligence, your clients would benefit from this end of trauma course, because when you start working with people, much of what you're doing is helping them move from phase 1 to phase 2 and helping them understand this new model of how we work, and will help your clients begin to get some sense of what organic intelligence is and how they can best use their time in session. Because we use instead of focus on the trauma or focus on what's wrong, focus on the problem, we focus on a free association conversation. And so for clients to begin to get their orientation down, to get the addiction to what's wrong, attention calmed down, to begin to focus on aspects of orientation and the positive psychology of pleasure and enjoyment and meaning, to really begin that practice means that your clinical work will be much more efficient and your client support will be much greater. So it's going to be a thorough and comprehensive course. I'm hoping that that you'll be able to check it out, use it for yourself. If you're already working in organic intelligence, to really find this for your clients, and hopefully it'll be a gift to the resiliency field as well. So and then once you get this phase 2 in line, then we're moving toward what I'm calling prosilience, thanks to our friends in the Basel Heart Training. This prosilience, resilience means sort of bouncing back, but organic intelligence says resilience is simply the platform for the launch into the way that your biology and mind wants to grow and develop. And in that growth and development, express its true human nature in our social engagement system, which is, of course, the pleasure of connection, of love and contact. So I hope you'll hang in there and be able to join us for the movement from chaos to resilience, and then on to prosilience, where hopefully our nature can shine through. And our agenda, just to be really clear, is our agenda is to support people of goodwill to grow their natural ability of compassion so that that compassion spills over into benefit for life on the planet. So I hope that begins to give you a little flavor of where we're going. The caveat in all of this is that the what's wrong attention is so pervasive that we have to be really strategic about which of the ISOMA channels we reinforce. When I left, I studied clinical psychology, and I studied in an APA-approved program and did all of the coursework, all of the internships, all of the clerkships, all of the psych testing, and got a successful first draft of my dissertation, and walked away because I saw a sign that said healing trauma through the body. And I said, yes, something is there. And I really studied then for quite some time to figure out what is this language of the biology that we need to speak. And it has so much to do with the language of sensation. But sensation, if you're studying the language of the physiology, and then many schools of thought say, it's sensation. So in Dick Olney's school, which then was a source for somatic experiencing, sensory motor psychotherapy, Hakomi, and others, they really relied on the use of sensation and sensation awareness. It's called, in science, it's called interoception, as does meditation. And in that Olney school, they learned the use of sensation awareness through the work, certainly of the Gurdjieff tradition, which works a lot in sensation, but also through a woman who is a pioneer in this area named Charlotte Selber. And so the work of sensation is an important work, but as with all the channels, it's not necessarily the answer. If you're a cognitive behavioral therapist, you say, okay, let's focus on cognition. If you're, a insight-oriented therapist. You may also look at insight, but you may be looking also at emotion. Therapy often really focuses on emotion, examination of emotion. So you say, oh, it's the A of isoma that's important, or the cognitive work, oh, it's the M that's important. Or if you're working in eidetic imagery or maybe hypnosis, you're saying, oh, it's the image channel that's important. If you're working in the somatic approaches, you say, oh, it's the somatic approach that's important. Well, each of those is true. All of those are important. But what's even more important is that we recognize there's a larger function of the biology that is self-organizing, and really that the biology is in intending to bring stability will mostly be subject to that what's wrong attention, to the negativity bias, and all of those channels, if left alone, will most often simply reinforce the current level of functioning or stuckness. So at the same time that we say, yes, it's all of those channels, most of the time it's not any particular channel. Like it's not image, it's not sensation, it's not orientation, meaning, or affect that is most key. What's key is that we learn to hear and feel and sense more and more subtly the channel through which the self-organizing information is brought, and then in OI we reflect that back either subconsciously or consciously to the client system, so that the signal of that self-organizing impulse will be obtained and integrated into that client system. And so that's what I've been doing for the past 20 years, is really training clinicians mostly for work in this way. Now we're opening it up. The heart training is open for anyone of goodwill who wants to train in this way, because we're not doing therapy. We're doing this interpersonal biofeedback process, and we are opening then this end of trauma course for anyone who wants to integrate these skills for their own life first. One of the things that I hope you really believe is a cornerstone of our work here in organic intelligence, which is that the work of personal integration has to go right alongside the work of like professional integration. That is, we're really interested in the growth of our own system, and my growth personally is enhanced by my growth professionally. Like learning how to do organic intelligence for others is helpful for myself. It's that win-win situation that we get. A little bit later today, I'll do an interview for a documentary in the Broken Brain series of Dr. Mark Hyman, and we'll be talking about this notion that this self-organizing capacity our organic intelligence approach advocates is really this natural approach that leans heavily on something that I want to repeat, which is you are more amazing than you know. You are more amazing than you know. And so in this time, I'm looking forward to the dialogue with a biology, with a physiology, with images and sensations and cognitions and feelings that specifically are coming from you to you. But we need one another. We need the reflection from one another to really make that happen. And that's for those of us in the DIY world, that's not our most favorite thing to hear, like, I can't do it all myself, but that's the reality. There is stuff we need to do, and we need our due diligence, and that's going to be lined out in the end of trauma course, and then we need some help. And we have trained, and I have trained over the years, really thousands of therapists, and the organic intelligence community is ready and standing by to support you in your growth and development, and you can leverage then the growth that you do and the work that you do for yourself in the end of trauma course, then by going into and working and bringing that better stabilization and that positive psychological framework into your session work, so that you can really then grow your biology and get back on track. Okay, So that's the direction we're beginning to think of. The main things that I wanted to name here were these ideas. Priming is key. Work with image is really key, and the way that we are giving benign neglect to the information that is disorganizing our compass is really around what feels well, what feels good. And we give a certain amount of what I call benign neglect to that which doesn't feel well, unless there's a good reason for it. Like I'm being chased by a bear. I'm going to feel jacked up if I'm being chased by a bear. Or, you know, there are a whole host of other environmental traumas that could threaten me, but in the absence of life threat, my biology should be fairly relaxed, comfortable, and providing impulse toward connection, engagement, joy, and pleasure, exploration, and play. All of this is our bailiwick, right? All of that is our bailiwick. That's our human nature. And probably along with a bit of gossiping, which is of course problematic, but so enjoyable. So we have to choose where we're going to send our attention. We're going to practice that and get you a bit more control over your situation, so you begin to feel better and are able to then leverage your feeling better into real growth of being at the level of the physiology. That's where the rubber hits the road for us. So these are some tools that I wanted to have you come into mind about, and it's really no more than the gift of coming into our nature, right? There is support coming your way, and it is from yourself. And I'm looking forward to your participation with that. I hope you'll consider this end of trauma course as a way of really supporting yourself, so that you then will be in support of life on the planet. And the fuel for that, from the standpoint of organic intelligence, is our birthright in joy and meaningful engagement. Joy and meaningful engagement. So there is lots to look forward to.